Good morning. GM.
GM, buenos dias, bom dia, صباح الخير. GM, happy to be here.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're having a wonderful Saturday. I'm bringing you your Saturday morning cartoons. Art interviews, fine art interviews, which is so much better than cartoons. It's like adult cartoons. Okay, I'm Creatress. This is another one of my series of interviews with the featured artists in Anima Mundi. And if you haven't heard of Anima Mundi, it is the curation that I was very recently honored to lead. So Anima Mundi is Latin for soul of the world. And in the United States specifically, from September 15th to October 15th, we celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, which is really all about celebrating and uplifting different parts of the Hispanic cultures that many people living in the United States have. So I personally am a person who was born in Mexico, but one of my parents is from the United States. So I got the unique pleasure of being a dual citizen. And I have lived both in Mexico and in the United States. And so I'm very well aware of all the cultural contributions brought over by the Hispanic culture. I'm immersed in both. And I just thought this was a really fun way to remind everybody of all the beautiful things that actually connect us, that soul of the world concept that so many cultures actually share. And so a lot of the artworks that are in this curation touch on that subject in some way or another. And of course, these topics are also personal. So each artist really brought forth their own lived experience to this. And I have to say, not every artist in the curation is of Hispanic descent, but I think that's even more, it's even more telling to how important the contributions that Hispanic cultures have brought. It spans far beyond the places that we are from, or even the United States. Like, it's a global reach and influence that these, not just Latin as a language has had, but all the cultures that that share that root language. So enough of that. I also want to say thank you to One Love DAO, which is the organization where we are hosting this exhibition on object.com. They have a collection. They have essentially like a curation platform, and One Love DAO has hosted, I believe, 4 curations so far on their object page. So this is one of the first ones. We're very lucky to be part of it. And I also want to say thank you to the artists, because 5% of the proceeds from each artwork do go back to the DAO and helps the DAO continue to do really just supportive things for artists like this. So thanks to One Love DAO for the invitation to do this. Thank you to object.com for hosting all the artworks and being the marketplace that we used. And thanks for featuring us on the front page and on your socials. And thank you to Webby Social, which is where we hosted the open call. And they were very supportive as well. They wrote an article about the open call. And yes, so we have gotten a lot of support so far, and I'm extremely grateful for that. If you're watching this and you're a collector or an art lover, please do go look at the artworks. We have a few that are still available. And yes, so without further ado, we are now going to move into the interview portion of today. We have Mr. Ibraheem Leon, one of the featured artists in the collection. And if you don't know him, today is the perfect opportunity to learn more. So without any further ado, for the 3rd or 4th time, Ibraheem, tell us a little bit about you and your history and your aspirations as an artist.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Creatress. It's really a pleasure to be on this platform. I'm grateful for all the different moving parts, be it One Love DAO, Webby Social, your work, Object, for hosting us and featuring us on the front page. Grateful for all of it, and happy to be here with you. It's an amazing curation and quite meaningful, which I'm sure we're going to get into as part of this interview. But a little bit about me. My name is Ibraheem Leon, and I'm a multidisciplinary artist. I use different mediums. Of the favorite mediums that I use is poetry, but I also use visual arts, martial arts, blockchain technology, and other mediums to tell and preserve important stories. I originally am from Sierra Leone, West Africa, and although I have origins on that West Coast, I grew up on the West Coast of the United States, so in California, and also spent and had many formative years in other places around the globe, like Saudi Arabia, Yemen, and Egypt, where I am right now. So I'm actually joining this call today from Cairo. Uh, I've always been an artist. The earliest recollections I have of making art, start in elementary. And I've also always been a poet. That is also when I recall writing my first poems. I will spare you the entirety of my genesis moment with poetry because it's actually quite traumatic. But to summarize, there was a traumatic experience that I had as a child, or that I bore witness to as a child. And my way of processing that was writing a poem about it and seeing its impact on me and my process and my grieving process, but also other people who were impacted by this experience, really cemented to me the value of poetry. And although I've experienced and experimented many different mediums of art throughout the years, poetry, I would say, is oftentimes the soul of a lot of my work, even if it's not overtly a poem and it's a visual language that you're seeing, or it's a movement that you're seeing, or a film that you're seeing, or even just a photograph. Even if it's just a photograph, at the core of it, really, there is a meaning that I want you to experience or to feel. And the Arabic word for poetry is sher, and in the Arabic language, the root word oftentimes ties to other meanings. And the root word for poetry in Arabic is also the root word for feeling. So oftentimes when I share poetry or I share art, ideally the goal is to make you feel something. I am very passionate about the intersection of art and technology. I've been in the crypto art space for some years now. And what brought me to the space was this new frontier that was really exciting, especially for an artist, and the prospect of being able to monetize your work, the potential of being able to connect with a global community of collectors and artists. And I do participate in this space, not just as an artist, but as a collector. I actually am a collector of a good amount of pieces in this curation. I might have raced to get some pieces because I wanted to have them in my wallet, And so I enjoy both creating and I enjoy collecting. To me, they're both related parts of the same process. And when I'm collecting art from other artists, I don't feel that I'm doing something outside of myself. Rather, I'm feeding into this vision, this collective future, this ecosystem through which artists from all around the world are able to thrive. So it's really, really cool to be a part of that. When I think about aspirations as an artist, I think I go beyond the art itself, and I think about the role of an artist in highlighting and perhaps pulling the curtain back on truth. That truth may be beauty, that truth may be pain, it may be a political truth. It may be a truth that other people are not comfortable saying out loud. But I think that's the role of art. And my aspiration with my art is to pull the curtain back, and expose people to truth in a way that really resonates and perhaps can move people from one place to another. And I would I would also say that my relationship with art is very much informed by my relationship with change. I've spent a lot of my life doing community organizing, political work, direct action around issues related to housing, immigration, racial justice, climate justice. And I found that oftentimes the thing that has the most capacity to move someone beyond statistics and numbers is really a good, well told story. So I'd say that's the other aspiration with my work is really to move people, move people to action. There's a quote, I forget who says it, um, but it goes something along the lines of the role of the artist is to make revolution irresistible. And I believe that to be true. The role of the artist is very important. And where I'll land is something that very much ties to this particular curation and what made me really excited about it. The other thing that I think is really important about art and storytelling is that it functions as a tapestry, as a container for stories and history. And so, insofar as we are using art and stories to tell things in the present, I think they're also really important to preserve things of the past. And so, my aspiration with my art, with my storytelling, is to really contribute to the collective memory of mankind and in the hopes that future generations have the stories, the truths, the beautiful and the ugly, of the past to make informed and grounded decisions.
That's incredible. I have a lot of things to say now. Uh, First of all, I didn't know that you'd been in the space for 7 years. That's pretty. I would say that's pretty senior in our space.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, I don't know if I misspoke, but I haven't been in the space for 7 years. It's been 6 years, just to
Okay.
be this is to be accurate. But yeah, sometime it's been around for a while.
Still a very good amount of time.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. There's something to be said for artists who have stuck with it for more than a season, because we see people come and go all the time, and not just artists. I just mean community members as well.
Right.
So it's always nice to see some longevity and someone who's been through like all the ups and downs and like all the cycles through the long term. So just like commend you for that. The other thing, was, I mean, so many things, but this last thing that you were just talking about, with wanting the art to be like a time capsule or like part of, like history books. I think that is extremely important as like a vision. I definitely share that vision. And that is also part of why Anima Mundi was so important, because it is like all about, things. It's all about culture, really, and
Right.
beliefs. And that's what we're trying to preserve more than anything, because culture constantly evolves, right? So like a time capsule of our culture, like in this moment, as we've experienced it. I recently did a short AI film, and that's about mythology from my ancestry, right? And that's literally, kind of what, to your point, trying to make art that will be like a story that might not have been preserved otherwise. So I think that's really, really, it's really wonderful to hear from another artist. I think we're on the right track. And I understand now why your art was curated, even though I didn't know all this background. Now that you're, explaining, I'm like, oh, this all makes so much sense.
Right.
That depth in the art it just came through when we were curating. So thank you for submitting. And that leads me to my next question. And that is, how did you hear about the open call, and what encouraged you to either submit art that you already had or create new artwork for it? I'm not sure what your process was, but I'd love to hear how, how you came to be part of it.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. And I'm glad that the story and the context resonates with you. There's certain things that you apply for, and you just know that it's going to align because there is that level of alignment. This is one of those, especially with the mission of Anima Mundi, the description that I saw, the intentions that I saw that you had woven into the actual curation. I was like, yeah, this is aligned, and I know exactly what I'm going to submit to it. And so I'm happy that we're here, now a couple of weeks in, and to be able to reflect on the journey and the whys. But the reason, first of all, how I found out about it was on the timeline, as we do. I would imagine that it was One Love DAO sharing the opportunity that initially clued me in. And I subsequently went onto the Webby app and read more about it, learned more about it. And like I said, as soon as I read it, I was like, oh, this is a curation that I'm definitely going to be a part of. And the reason I say that is because I'm very, when we talk about art and, the preservation piece, and we can think about it from a preservation standpoint, generation to generation. But I think there's also something to be said about bridging the gaps between cultures and communities in the now. So I'm very passionate about the way that art and stories connect people across different cultures. And I've been very blessed throughout my life to have interacted and learned a lot about many different cultures. And I'm from California, which is basically Mexico. So I grew up with a lot of Latinos. And I always joke that I don't necessarily speak Spanish, but I speak organizer Spanish because I've worked in a lot of monolingual Spanish-speaking communities. So I'd be knocking on doors like, la renta está muy alta, sí? It's asking about the, what kind of landlords they had, and telling folks like, necesite, organízate conmigo, como Cesar Chavez, and, eventually like being able to build up power para pasar leyes y proteger rentadores, and, just being face to face with that culture and learning about the nuances and the overlaps. It's something that I'm very passionate about. And, when we talk about indigenous culture in the Americas, my connection, I would say, is primarily through the martial art of capoeira. And as someone who's been a practitioner of this martial art, perhaps we'll save a little bit of this for when we talk about the piece itself. I've always been fascinated by the connections, right? So the connections of Africans who were brought to the Americas as enslaved peoples, and their relationships with the indigenous people of the Americas, whether we're talking about in North America or in South America, the alliances that were formed, the way that the cultures and the languages evolved to be inclusive of each other. Even as a Muslim, for example, inshallah is part of my daily vocabulary, but learning that ojalá, which is used in Spanish, has that ancestral historic connection to inshallah, layers upon layers of connection. So when I read the Anima Mundi open call description and learned that it was about that connectivity, the soul of the world, collective memory, just the language that was used resonated deeply. And I was like, I have to submit to this. And I thought about what do I have to offer that I already embody, that I already practice, can I share? And so I landed upon the piece that I ended up sharing, which is Quilombiosphere, which is an exploration of the martial art and the relationship between indigenous people, African people, and the land. Uh, so yeah, it was kind of a no-brainer uh, as to why I submitted and why we're here today.
Yeah, that's really it feels like serendipitous. There are a few instances with artists that I've talked to where they had something that was perfect for this, and I love that. I think that's wonderful, because sometimes you make something and you're like, I don't have like a place for this. I'm not sure if it fits like my other work, or it fits into a neat collection. It's just like a one-off that you just felt called to do, and then you find something where it just fits perfectly. So I think that's wonderful. um and just like the land, the people, different cultures coming together, I think that's super important too. It fits so well because even within the Hispanic cultures, there's so much breadth, I should say, so much variety in
Right.
the actual people. So I love that you highlighted that part. Well, and okay, while we're on that subject, I'm actually going to pull it up here, and we're going to take a good look at it. Go here. We go. Let's see. See how it looks here.
It's quick, so don't blink or you miss it.
Let me know if you can hear it.
Under bondage, underground, not under fear. Limbs turned to weapons in the struggle of yesteryear. Earth gifted lessons so grounded we do not stumble here. Our presence in the jungle turned our quilombos into biospheres. Under bondage, underground, not under fear. Limbs turned to weapons in the struggle of yesteryear. Earth gifted lessons so grounded we do not stumble here. Our presence in the jungle turned our quilombos into biospheres.
Did you hear that?
I did.
Perfect. Wonderful. Would you want to read the description, or do you want to talk about it?
Sure, I could. You could keep it on the image itself of the enlarged, and then I can just share a little bit about the piece. Quilombiosphere. Quilombiosphere is a tribute to land, lineage, and identity, and the threads woven in between them. To understand this piece, there are other things that you need to understand. And one of those things is the martial art of capoeira. So capoeira is an Afro-Brazilian martial art. You've likely come across it in your lifetime, like if you've watched Only the Strong, or if you ever played Tekken and you played with Eddie, who was the guy with the dreads who looks like he's breakdancing when he's fighting. And that's a good descriptor, actually, is that capoeira does look like a break dance when people are practicing it. And the reason why is because capoeira is actually a game and a dance and a performance. And within that, hidden within that, is the martial art itself. And the reason it's presented as such is because in the 16th century in Brazil, where you had enslaved Africans who were fighting to win their freedom, they would practice this discipline whilst they were enslaved. So they would practice capoeira whilst they were enslaved. And to be able to practice it in secret, they would hide the martial art itself within the game and the dance. So to the casual observer, if you see someone who's playing capoeira, they're smiling, it looks like they're having fun, like they're dancing, they're performing, and it is all those things. But at the same time, what's happening is people are practicing agility, they are practicing timing, they are practicing striking and turning their limbs into weapons that they did use to liberate themselves. And, earlier we spoke about the idea of art serving as a container, as a a medium for collective memory, and capoeira also served as that. So capoeira is actually trained and played in front of an orchestra of indigenous instruments, and there are stories that are sung as people are training and playing the game of capoeira. And these stories are stories of history, they're stories of resilience, of liberation, of suffering, and hidden, I would say, actually encoded within the practice itself. You can find truths about heritage, about faith, about ancestry, that again, to the casual observer, is even in the modern day, many people would be oblivious to. And so I have found traces of my ancestry as a West African Muslim in the martial art of capoeira that are not widely known to the general public. And this is something that I explore in my work, but you have to follow me and, stick along for the journey to learn more about that. But it's fascinating because capoeira essentially is a means through which Africans preserved their heritage. And as cultures do, they evolve. And so it evolved to include indigenous practices, faiths, language, song. And when people used capoeira, as a tool of resistance and were able to escape, they retreated to what became known as quilombos. So quilombos are a historic term for communities known to exist in the jungles of Brazil. So when people who were enslaved escaped, they would form these communities in the jungle, and they're usually inaccessible, and they survived by farming and raiding. They resisted colonial forces through guerrilla tactics. And because of the demographic and makeup of people who inhabited these quilombos also evolved to become sort of safe spaces and communities for other marginalized groups. So it wasn't just Africans, there were other indigenous folks who would take refuge in quilombos. There were white folks who were persecuted because of their particular religion. And so quilombos became a sort of safe haven for people during the time of slavery in Brazil. And the last thing that I think is important to communicate so that you have the full context needed to understand this piece is the concept of a biosphere. So a biosphere is just the part of Earth and its atmosphere where living organisms exist. And within a biosphere, you know that the right conditions are met to support life. And to me, quilombos are a microcosm of that, right? And you can think about it in terms of relationship to land, like the way that people had to deeply understand the terrain, understand how to survive, to navigate that terrain, to create protective safe havens within that terrain. But you can also understand it within the context of quite literally just saving the lives of people who otherwise would be enslaved and at risk of death and torture and servitude. So when they were able to escape to a quilombo, in my mind, they were able to escape to and create biospheres, places wherein life could thrive. So this piece, I called it Quilombiosphere, which is a combination both of the concept of a quilombo and a biosphere. And in the piece itself, I created it by shooting a video of me executing a particular kick in the martial art of capoeira. And it's my favorite kick probably. And the reason I like it is because it's very unassuming. You can throw this kick from basically sitting almost cross-legged on the ground, and through movement and gathering force and a sweeping motion, you can generate enough force to take somebody's head off. It's a very dangerous kick because, again, you can go from 0 to 100 very quickly. And so I think even the kick itself embodies a lot of what capoeira is. Like if you are just looking at someone who's sitting down, kind of seems like they're relaxing, and in a matter of seconds, generate enough force to be dangerous. I think that's a lot of what capoeira is. So it's a video of myself, executing this kick, and layered on top of it is this very this is AI empowered concept that lends from movies like Avatar, right? Like where there's this brilliant imagining of what it looks like for an indigenous race to be in harmony with the planet. So it lends itself a little bit to this, where I turned my legs. It also lends itself a little bit to Pirates of the Caribbean, and some of the sailors who, like Barbosa, who lived under the sea and they basically became organisms of the sea. And so I basically used AI to paint over this actual video of myself executing this kick. And I would say that in a way, it's also collaborative with AI. Like I'll share something very interesting about my process with this piece, is that I wrote the poem as I was running my video through different runway iterations. And so my poem is also partially influenced by what the AI was providing me in terms of visuals. So if you'll notice, when I first kick off from the ground, what looks like my arm seems to turn into something else. In my mind, it looks almost like my arm becomes a machete, which I didn't do. That was a glitch of the AI initially. But in my mind, that is also something that capoeira embodies, which is like turning the limbs into weapons. And so that line of, the struggle that turned limbs into weapons is actually, inspired by AI, which I think is quite funny, because I do like the idea of thinking about AI as not just as a tool, but sometimes as a collaborator. And as artists, sometimes we can find a lot of fun in adopting and taking inspiration from whoever or whatever, in this case, we're collaborating with. So it is a video film of myself overlaid with AI, and a poem that I wrote that speaks a little bit to this moment in history where, formerly enslaved Africans were escaping vis-a-vis this martial art and creating communities in the jungle for survival. And that's my piece. Quilombiosphere. It's on object.com as part of this curation for an auction with a starting bid of 333 tes.
Amazing. Bravo. Honestly, the layers of meaning are just fabulous, honestly. I had no idea that this was an original video manipulated. So that, I think, is really, it's very unique. I don't think we have any other artworks in the collection that use a process like that. So congratulations on leading the charge. I think that's wonderful. And the voiceover is your voice.
It is my voice. The video is slowed down a little bit, so my voice is pitched down. But yeah, it's me.
All right, so that's great. So you used a video of yourself. So you used yourself in the artwork. You recorded yourself. You ran it through AI to recreate style, the visuals, everything. And then you also recorded the narration. Well, you wrote the poem, recorded the narration.
Yes.
Edited the video and the audio together. Okay. So this was a whole production. Yeah, no, I absolutely, I love the message. I did not know about Columbos. This is exactly why I wanted to, put together this curation, because I knew I would learn something about a culture that I didn't specifically know, right? So our Latin cultures, Hispanic cultures, we share a lot, but we all
Mm-hmm.
also have our own unique biospheres,
Right.
so to speak here, because we are all, so different. But I love that you brought this up, and these pockets of places where people can live and thrive that were persecuted, or you know all of these things that we were running from. I think that's incredible, and it speaks to the timing of Anima Mundi right now. As if you're watching this at home, wherever you live in the world, you may be aware that we're going through a lot of immigration debates and issues all over the world, not just in the United States and Mexico, but worldwide. There are people who are displaced from their places of origin, and it's an ongoing debate. It's an ongoing struggle that we're trying to all figure out worldwide. So I want to thank you for sharing this artwork with us and sending it to this wonderful curation, because it's literally touching on all the points that I wanted to highlight. Land, the people, the fact that in one area of land you can find indigenous, black, white people who might not even identify as anything, but are just running away from wherever they are and the danger that it presents. And I think we need, that's what the world is, honestly. There is, it's just people trying to find a place to survive and thrive
Right.
wherever they are. And finding communities that will support that, right? Regardless of race or color or anything. It's just like we just want to find people who want the same thing. And yeah, I thank you so much again. And to close out, I want to now talk about anything that you might be working on that we could support you on, whether that's now or in the future. Please do share.
I'd love to. I'd love to. So, first off, thank you for having me. And yeah, there's something quite just resounding about this theme of belonging and land and displacement. That's always, I'm always thinking about as someone who's an immigrant, as someone who believes in relationship to land, someone who's anti-colonialist, anti-imperialism. These are very very close to my heart, and I really appreciate this particular curation for speaking to that, for highlighting that, and highlighting some of the artists who care about this issue, and in line with what I shared around the importance of preservation. I would just share my project, The Tapestry. The Tapestry is a project born out of my desire to understand, know, document, and preserve my own culture as a West African. Sponsored by NFTs in 2021, I went back to my country of origin, Sierra Leone, and I was able to document oral histories from different tribes, different people, different faiths. And it's a mission that I cannot undertake alone. And I believe that all of us, in our own ways, are nodes that should contribute to the global archive. And my goal with the tapestry is not just to preserve my own culture and the stories that I'm passionate about, but to build tooling and to enable other people to be empowered and inspired to sit at the feet of their elders and pull out a camera or pull out an audio recorder and document these histories. Because again, the more that we do that and the more that we preserve and share that, the more we can maintain connection and become links in the chain or threads in the tapestry between different generations, but also cross-culturally. I believe that we're, as human beings, like we are all brothers and sisters, that come from the same mother and father. And so we share more than we know. And the more that we explore that, and the more we also have the tooling and the curiosity to discover those threads of connection, the more closely we can weave together our future. So if you want to support me, if you want to learn about what I'm doing and what I'm up to, I would say primarily just follow me on socials, starting with Twitter. I have been offline. I'm in a moment of transition, but I'm coming back online. I actually just got accepted into the Octant Creator Growth Program. And so I'm going to be working on telling my story, and not just my story, but sharing more of the stories that I care about, because I feel, especially in this space where we're talking about crypto art, we can get kind of caught in the hyper financialized casino. And I'm much more excited and passionate about the impact side of things, the public good side of things, the computer side of things. And so I'll be sharing stories and projects and people that I'm really passionate about. And so following me and engaging with my content will just help to proliferate counter narratives, right? Because there's a dominant narrative, but I'm really passionate about, us shaping and sharing our own narratives about the spaces that we inhabit. So yeah, that's what I'm really excited about. I'm always, as an artist, I'll always be creating. I'll always have new pieces, photography, film, poetry coming out, some that I'm working on right now. But I think taking a step back, I've also step more into a founder role as I work on building out the tapestry, this tooling for other people to be able to contribute to our global tapestry. And so I would say just follow along for the journey, and there'll be ways for you to contribute and to add value and to receive value, as we walk this path together. So thank you. Thank you for showing up. If you've made it this far in this live recording, I would hope that you've learned a lot and that your curiosity has been spiked. And following Creatress, following One Love DAO, following me, there'll be more to discover and learn about.
Incredible. There are a few things you mentioned that struck a chord. But they're escaping me now. So I'll just say thank you so much for giving such a deep and just heartfelt, but also historically packed, description of your artwork, and giving us the inspiration and the process. It was really, really, it was really nice and meaningful to hear it from you. And I love to hear the projects you're working on. I want to say a big congratulations on your Octant acceptance. That's huge. I've been hearing a lot about them. So I'm excited to see what you put out. And just excited to follow your process. I'm very grateful that you were part of this. And just very genuinely happy and excited to see that there are other artists that really care about preserving their culture and their historic, richness. Maybe rich is the wrong word to say, but that's how it feels. They're cultural heritage, really, using these new tools that we have. Because art and technology, that's another thing I wanted to say. Art and technology are my two favorite things as well. And I love to see you working also at the intersection of those two things, which are so important to making sure our culture lives beyond present day. We want this to continue, and we want future generations to know about our ancestors. And then when we become the ancestors, we'd love to leave some messages behind too of that connection that we share. So one thing I wanted to mention, because you were talking about this connection of all of us, right? I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson said, every breath you take, particles in there have been breathed by everybody else who has ever lived. like every single one, like the air, like just there's so many particles that come in that come out every single time, and they spread so fast that they've literally like it's proven people who lived 1,000 years ago, like your ancestors were breathing the same air that they breathe. So we're like so interconnected. We sometimes forget, but
Right.
so much for hitting on that point so well with your art and with your message. And yes, just want to say sending you all my wishes for success. I am hoping to find the forever home to this artwork as well. We didn't mention, but it is a one of one, so it is a very unique offering. So again, thank you so much, Ibraheem. Thank you guys for watching. Please share, comment, go take a look at the collection, and yes, tune in for the next one. We're going to have at least one more interview going out from an artist who was featured in the collection. So thank you again. Everybody have a good day.
Thank you. Peace, y'all.